Hello and welcome to Gadget Joe, and today we're taking a look at a very special unit that could quite easily take over the crown as the new handheld gaming PC king. Yes, today we have the Antec Core HS. Now this is Antec's first dive into the handheld gaming PC market, and it really did sort of take people by surprise. I found this out when I went to the TechMax 24 convention. I did post a video about that, and I did give you a sneak preview on this device where I got my hands on one and had a bit of a play with it, and I was left very impressed with it then. Now, I knew they were going to be bringing out lots of new products, but a handheld PC was definitely the last thing I ever expected from a company like Antec. Now, just recently, Antec seemed to have had a shift in presence on the market. They have been producing some fantastic products. I'm trying to get some of their cases in that I think look absolutely fantastic, and they are already proven to be very popular because they're selling out pretty much every time they replenish the stock, which is why I'm struggling to get hold of them. But they have really stepped it up a level in terms of their products, and this is a key indicator of the direction that they're wanting to go into, producing more products that is sort of taking them away from just the case manufacturing. Now this is the Antec Core HS. It is actually the Ayaneo Slide. Now the Ayaneo Slide is a device made by a company called Ayaneo. Ayaneo make a lot of handheld PCs, and this is one of their latest models, and it's probably one of the highest spec ones as well. It's actually got the specs to sort of go toe to toe with the latest likes of the ROG Ally X, the Legion Go, and obviously the MSI Claw. Now the MSI Claw I know has quite a few faults with it. I'm hoping to get my hands on one so that I can really put that to the test, but this has an impressive amount of specifications to boot, and in this video we're going to do it slightly different. We're going to change the view. We're going to do the usual Gadget Joe stuff of getting it unboxed, see what the unboxing experience is like, see what you get inside the box. Then I'll go through some of the specifications, then I'll also show you some of the gameplay, and then for the second half of the video it's going to be a direct comparison to the likes of a Steam Deck, the ROG Ally and the Lenovo Legion Go, so you can get a rough idea of what to expect from each one of those devices. Now this is going to be quite a long video, so what I'll do for the sake of that is I'll run across some timestamps in the description down below, or alternatively on screen now, so that you can skip ahead to the parts that you do want to see. So what I'm going to do now is just jump straight into the video and we'll see how the unboxing experience is. So what we have here is the box for the Antec Core HS. Now the box is quite classy looking. It's not in your face and bold and bright. It does have a bit of colour with obviously that red stripe going along here. You've got some key information on the box itself in terms of branding. You have the Core HS, which is the model of this device. It's a Windows 11 handheld PC powered by AMD, and it is an Antec product, but it's actually powered or made by Ayaneo. So as you can see here, it says in collaboration with Ayaneo. This device is effectively an Ayaneo Slide with some Antec branding on it. On the other side, you just have some basic branding on here. On the top here, you have a few key details with technical support and contact details. And then on this side, you have some serial numbers and the model that is indicated that we have in this box here. This case is obviously having the 7840U processor and a 32GB RAM and 2TB storage. On the back, you have an image of both the different colour variants that are available in this device, and we have both colours here today so you can get a good look at exactly what they look like. Then there are some key features about the device, including some information about the joysticks for power consumption, and obviously the connectivity in terms of Bluetooth, USB and Wi-Fi. Now the actual box itself is actually really nicely presented, and it's a bit of a nod for something quite retro. So for those of you that are old enough to remember what a VHS cassette or a tape is, this is basically designed to look like one. As you can see here on the side, it does have what is effectively the label that you would see on an old video cassette. On the top here, which if I can get it onto it, you've got the tab that you used to break down so that you could actually record on top of a cassette if you need to, or alternatively cover it so nobody else could do. And obviously the actual box itself is effectively the outer cardboard sleeve of the cassette. Now they carry that through as well, so if I take it out, that's really quite tough to take out. It sort of vacuum seals itself in. As you can see, the actual design of the box carries through with it. You do have those wheels on the back with all the extra little details that you would normally see on a videotape. These things were the devil's work. If you knew anything about tapes and you worked with tapes and there was a problem with one and you had to wind them back up, you'll know all too well about these work, basically. On the front, you have again the same aesthetic, the theme going through. You have the label on the front and then obviously the information on the top, and then also the windows which you would normally see the tape rolls, the cassettes inside. On here you have the controls on either side of the device. To take the device out of the box, you have a little pull tab here. All you need to do here is just pull this out. Everything is so tightly packed and well put together. It's a really good unboxing experience. On the front you have a little foam pad that has Antec and a little QR code so that you can join the Discord. I'll leave that up there for a second, or you can pause it if you do want to indeed go and join the Discord. What you see now is the device itself. Now the device is really nice and smart. It looks absolutely fantastic, but we'll get a bit more into the details of that very shortly. For the start of this bit, we're just going to take it out and see what you get in the box. Now it is injection foam, molded foam, so that it holds it into position, and it even has support here for the back and the recesses of the device itself. Now the device itself is absolutely stunning, but again, for the purpose of this, we're just going to move this to the side and take a look at the box. On this side you get a long envelope. Effectively all of them are labelled with a glossy Antec logo. Each box is it, and this one for some reason does have it, but it's actually done on the side of it and you can't see it when it's presented in there, so it would be nice to maybe see it done there, but again that's been a bit trivial. But as you can see, everything is very uniformly presented and it's really well presented as well. Now in this envelope here, if I just take it out without trying to rip it all up, you have some information including a user manual and then obviously some key information about the software suites that are available on this device. You also have tips and tricks, and then obviously you have some extra demographics here. Next we're going to take a look at this box here, open it up, and you will see a large power brick. Now obviously this is a full-fledged PC effectively. It does have all the components that you would see in a PC, but it doesn't need a brick quite as large as what you would see on a laptop to power it. It is a 65 watt unit and it does operate at up to 15 volts dependent on the power output. And the next box is a larger box, and this has some more accessories in it that you need to basically connect the power brick up so that you can use it, whether you are in the UK or anywhere across the world effectively. So as you can see, for the sake of a UK plug, what we have here is a UK adapter, and all this does is simply slots on over these pins here, pushes in, and then I now have a UK plug. It is a USB Type-C plug as well, which obviously you get the cable in here. We'll take a look at that very shortly. You also have some extra adapters for European and American plugs. And then you also have two USB on-the-go adapters. Now, because on the actual device there are two USB-C ports, that's pretty much all of the external ports that you get on the device. This allows you to connect a USB-A port, so a standard USB, if you don't have a USB-C device. This is especially useful if you're wanting to connect external media, or alternatively if you're wanting to connect a mouse or keyboard or anything like that to this device. And then last but not least, we do get that box that I was talking about earlier, and that does simply contain the cable that you need to charge your Antec Core HS. They really do pack these things in, these boxes, very tightly. Just getting the box out of that cardboard sleeve earlier was an absolute task on its own, because it sort of vacuum sealed itself in. Everything is pretty much made for what it needs to be made for, and the unboxing experience is really quite premium. So as you can see here, you have a nice long, quite thick USB-C power cable. Now this is capable of delivering speeds of up to 65 watts for a fast charge of the handheld. It does come in two different colours. We have the black one here, and we also have the white one. Now personally I think the white one looks the nicest. It does look really quite modern, and it looks very, I suppose you could call it cute effectively, and it is very premium looking. Now obviously it does have that black panel because that's the screen with some black borders on there, but everything else is white, and it does have a light blue, almost greeny coloured trigger buttons on there, and then obviously the actual buttons everywhere else are green, or the accents are green on top of a white, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Now the keyboard itself, when you pop it up, is also white, as you can see here. Now the keyboard is an RGB backlit keyboard, so that it will show up whatever colour you want to, but overall the white one looks absolutely fantastic. Now if you're not really into a white unit, then the black one is the one to look for yourself. Now again, the black one is still very, very stunning, and as you can see, the details are fantastic on this. You do have white colouring on this, where it would be green or blue on the other one, but all the other keys are black with a bit of Antec logos on here in green. Again, on this one, the keyboard is also black, again RGB backlit. When you buy yourself one of these handsets, currently they're only available at eBuyer in the UK, but they will be available in a lot more places very, very shortly, because it is a relatively new contender on the handheld PC market. It does currently come with a lot of accessories as well, included in the price. Now, I don't know how long this is going to be staying on for, so when you see in this video, it might have finished. I don't know if they're going to carry on keeping the offer of all the accessories included within the price for the sake of the entirety of the sales, or whether it's just a introductory promotion that they are running. But the accessories that you do get with it are this rather fetching Antec case. Now it's actually designed to look like the actual unit itself, so everything fits in nice and perfectly snug. It's even got the recess to match the shape of the actual unit itself all the way along, and it is a really nice premium feeling case. Now it's got that interesting little modern, I know it's not, but it almost reminds me of an Italian aesthetic, but it just feels really nice and premium. I mean, you've got the lanyard, so you can connect that to it as well. You have a little pouch that you can put your cable in there as well if you want to charge it through that way, and then a little pad here to just sort of protect the battery on the back of it. A very nice little addition if you wanted to carry it around. Now, one thing I will mention about this case, which I believe is something that they could do with changing. Now, I mean, it's not necessary, but of all the other handheld PCs that I have, every single one of their cases has a little cutout, either one side or both sides, where you can connect the charger to charge the device whilst it's in the case. That's a really nice addition. I suppose you could sort of counter argue that you shouldn't really be keeping it in a case while it's charging. If it's switched off and you're charging, then there's no issues for it being in there. But if you're going to have it powered up while you've got it in a case, first of all, you shouldn't really be doing that anyway, because you're going to suffocate any airflow whilst it's in there. But again, it would be nice to see it, but nonetheless, a very nice case included within the price. You also get some additional joystick caps. These are little buttons that can sit on top of the joysticks, and you get quite a few of them. They are a rubbery feel. They almost feel a bit like the old PlayStation controllers with the joysticks on those. You also get a screen protector for that screen. The screen is going to be seeing a lot of action. It's got a lot of fingerprints because it is a touch screen, and obviously it does slide up and down when you're moving it around. It's nice to have something like this included as well. And then last but not least, probably the most useful part is the INAO multi-station. Now this is a docking device that effectively allows you to connect the handheld, the Antec Core HS, to your TV, and also have some additional USB ports and output connectivity, and even plug a Ethernet cable into there so you can have internet access on there without going through Wi-Fi. Now here, the unboxing experience is pretty much similar to the actual device itself. Very, very premium feeling. Everything fits in just nicely, and the dock is very simple. That's pretty much all you get. You just get the user manual and then the actual dock itself. Now the dock itself feels really nice and quality. When it comes to a multi-station or the dock, there is a large amount of connectivity available. This little USB-C that pops up here, as you can see, is where the device sits onto, and it can actually be maneuvered and repositioned to where you want to have it. So if you do have a case on this or a custom shell, it can be maneuvered so that it still fits everything into position. There is also a little lock that you can put on the bottom. If you slide that across, I now cannot move that at all. And then there is a light that will come up to say that it is docked and it is working. There is also passive air cooling with a small fan inside this that does sort of help dissipate the heat from the actual dock itself. When it's connected, you're going to be losing that USB-C that is obviously connected to the device itself, but in turn you gain all of these connection points afterwards. You get 2 USB-C ports, 2 USB-A ports, a HDMI output to connect it to your TV, and then even an RJ45 socket, Ethernet socket, so that you can connect the device to the internet. At the top there is also an additional micro SD and SD card reader included. And connecting the device to the dock is super simple. The USB-C that you can see at the bottom there just simply connects straight onto the dock, and it just sits into position, holds itself there, and it's connected. The Antec Core HS is a bit of a powerhouse when it comes to specifications. It features an AMD Ryzen 7 7840U processor. That's an 8-core 16-thread unit with a 3.3 GHz base speed and up to 5.1 GHz max boost clock speed with an inbuilt onboard graphics chipset known as a Radeon 780M. A 12-core 2700 MHz unit that is more than enough power to power almost any game thrown at the device. This is accompanied with 2 different RAM versions, one coming with 16GB and a larger version having 32GB. Both are high-speed LPDDR5X dual-channel modules running at an impressive 6500 MHz clock speed with a potential to clock up to 7500 MHz maximum speed. There is an M2 2280 PCIe Gen 4 SSD for storage too, and depending on the model you choose, you get either 512GB on the 16GB model or a whopping 2TB on the 32GB unit, with space for upgrading the storage to 4TB on both versions. All of this is powered by a 46.2 Wh or 12,000 mAh battery to keep it running for extended periods. Cooling is provided by an innovative 3x2 triple copper tube cooling system with 2 thermal copper sheets to ensure maximum heat retention from the chipsets, and a high pressure turbine fan that exhausts the heat away from the device through the vents situated at the top of the device. So as you can see, the Antec Core HS pretty much is a standard PC. You have the full display here and it looks very much like you would see on your desktop at home. Now obviously with the docking station that you get included, you can effectively power this to a monitor and then have it as a personal PC. It will do pretty much everything a standard computer will do. You can browse the internet, go onto YouTube, watch Netflix, you can do your emails, you can do everything like that. Now obviously a lot of the features like I've just mentioned are going to be quite difficult when doing it on such a small screen, and obviously that smaller keyboard that you see here is going to be slightly difficult, in which case you could just then obviously add a mouse and keyboard to the mix so that it does effectively become a full-fledged PC. Now obviously having a full system means that you can run multiple different formats for gaming. Now when it comes to gaming, what I have here is I've got Steam library, I've got the EA library, I've got the Xbox Game Pass library, and I've got the Epic Games library. Now you can do a lot of other things like emulation. Devices like this are very popular for things like emulation, and they do not take much power at all. Now when it comes to playing the games, you can obviously do things like load different launchers for the game that you're wanting to play, and obviously that would mean that you've then got multiple different libraries for different games. Now what you have on the Antec Core HS is Ayaspace. Now that is Ioneer's own software that effectively, if I open it up, puts the games that you do have on the device all into one place. So as you can see, I don't have loads of games on this yet. I've not really synced all my libraries to it, but the games that I do have on there, obviously you've got the Microsoft Solitaire Collection, that's just a Microsoft game. You do have Asphalt Legends Unite, you've got Fishing Planet and Fall Guys, so that you can see the games that are installed on your Core HS. Now the Ayaspace software suite is absolutely fantastic because not only can you see all of your games from one single launcher, you can also do some further settings to the device. So as you can see here, you've got the notifications, the wireless connectivity, the battery percentage at the top, and obviously the time. Then you have this button here, which is your settings. Now this is where you can really go into a little bit more detail on the Antec Core HS. Now at the moment I don't have an Ayaspace account set up, which obviously you can do that. You do also have a Space app connection, so you can download it on your phone if you wish to do so, and you can then communicate with your phone on this device as well. Now the best part of this, obviously before I go into all the performance and monitor, it's effectively like having Control-Alt-Delete with Task Manager on your PC. Again, you can still do that, but this is a bit more direct and a bit more personal, and you can do a little bit more with it. So I'm going to jump straight to startup and optimization. So obviously you can do all the startup. What this means is, as soon as you start the Antec Core HS up, this app will run. You do have mouse mode so that you can use the controllers as a mouse. Go down, and obviously you've got Bluetooth connectivity, network, which is obviously a wireless network. You can then customize further things such as your theme, your wallpaper. You can have it to play videos with video music and all your sound. You go down to general and you have your language, your servers, your time zones. Windows, obviously you can sort your main Windows system out here. Controller, this is where you can effectively really fine tune the actual controls of the Antec Core HS. So if you do have a preferred method of working, if you want to switch or invert the keys, you can do that here. You also have options to enable some of the keys to become shortcuts to other functions as well, and obviously you do have the RGB lighting effect, and here you can go through different functionalities. So currently I'm setting up different ones that would be seen behind the joysticks. You can also set the RGB behind the keyboard as well. Storage is where you can get a good idea of just how much space you have left on the hard drive that is included on this device. Now obviously as you can see, I'm using 109 gigabytes and I have 1.89 gigabytes remaining. That is one of the key features about this device, something that I have mentioned multiple times on this, and I think it is one of the key selling points as well, having a 2 terabyte storage straight out of a box. There's also options to update, so obviously as you can see there is an update available. I'll do that very shortly. And then finally you have an about system, which basically gives you an information about the device, including the chipset, the graphics chipset, how many cores you've got, so 16 cores with the Radeon 780M graphics. The RAM is set currently at 6400 megahertz per second, or megahertz. It is capable of running up to 7500 megahertz per second. So what we're going to do now is just look past all this and we're going to go to the performance. Now the performance, this is what you can change for certain games depending on what you're playing on. And you can really sort of fine tune your system to exactly how you want. You can really push it on certain games so that you can get the most performance out of it. Or alternatively, you can do it through retro game settings so that it lowers the power draw of that processor and also allows the fans to kick in when needed, obviously. And then obviously this will help with battery life and performance of the device. Now one thing I will say is if you are using it on AAA game, it is going to draw power and it will use your battery quicker. Also, it will cause the device to be quite warm. It's not going to be too hot that you can't handle it, because obviously the heat is dissipating where behind the screen is, and when you're holding the joysticks and the controller, effectively you're not really going to feel it. It is going to get a bit warm, but that's the same with any handheld device. Now thankfully the fan on this one, it is a little bit loud, but if you're in the middle of a game you're not really going to notice it, and when it does kick in it does push quite an amount of air out of the top, doing the job what it needs to do. So if you go to PC Office, you're going to have a really low power draw here. Still going to do pretty much anything you throw at it, so it's going to be absolutely fine to use. And obviously as you see here, your power policy is on saving, and the power draw for this one is 9 watts. Obviously there is an unlimited FPS limit, but if you're just using it on the PC Office setting, you're not really going to be doing much gaming. You can do an extra features such as your fan configuration. As you can see here, it kicks in when it needs to based on the performance of the device. Going back, we can then go back to the AAA game setup. As you can see here now, we have a 23 watts power usage, and obviously the power policy is set to high. So it's a very, very smart device, and you can really sort of set it up exactly how you want to set it up. You can have it so that it's not pushing too much power, obviously really making it warm and draining the battery when you don't need it for certain games. Retro game is obviously like the emulator systems. Obviously if you're going to be emulating some of the more higher end systems like the Nintendo Switch or PlayStation 3 or anything like that, then you probably want to be doing it more at normal game. Most games running on Steam or Epic or Xbox, a lot of the newer games are going to require it to be set to AAA. Now the good thing about this device is it will automatically pick up what game you are playing and work out which one you need to, so you don't really need to go into too much detail, but it's very nice to be able to see that you have this functionality. Now if you go to monitor, what this does is allows you to effectively have all the specifications of the device and how hot it's running, how much power it's drawing on the top. So if I go to performance overlay, as you can see now, it's running at 61 frames per second, but we're not really doing anything. You've got the processor in here and it's running at 54.8 degrees Celsius. That's quite warm, but I've just been playing multiple games to show the footage on this video. So I've been playing for probably a good 45 minutes. So that's about where I should expect it. It is starting to cool down a little bit now. And obviously the chipset, the graphics chipset inside there, the 780M, that is also running around 54 degrees. The RAM is utilising 7.3 of 25.7GB available, and obviously the SSD, 109GB is used with 1.8TB left of use. Now the charge rate is currently drawing at 22 watts, so it's utilising 22 watts of battery power. Currently, because obviously everything's still running, the fans are still running, you get a good idea of how loud they are actually, because they are running right now. And there's a very, very distinct hum. And then obviously you've got your data bandwidths at the top and the fan speed with the electricity, which is obviously your battery rating on there. Now the best thing is about having this performance overlay is while you are playing games, you can have this running so that you can see just how many frames you are keeping up with on the game. But the system, from what I've been testing it at, has been keeping itself really nice and stable. I haven't found a game yet that I have been able to play on this device that I cannot play. You often find that on some of the Steam libraries or the Xbox libraries, if the game is too intensive, it needs an additional dedicated GPU, obviously they won't give you the option to download that game. Now if you zoom out and you want to go onto the Ayaspace app, you don't have to click through here or click through on the home screen. You can just simply press this button here. This button here has the Ayaspace logo on it, and as you press it, it will load it up. Now what it's done here is it's loaded it up on the side screen. So this is a quick access version of the app that we've just opened, and here you can do pretty much the same thing, but you have it on a more convenient side view. So this will actually run an overlay over games as well, so that you can adjust the settings mid-game. Obviously press it, it turns it straight off, and it's as quick as that. As soon as you press it, it loads straight up. And obviously you can turn your performance overlay off if you want to do that on here and turn it back on. And then you can also change your program. So if you want to change it to normal game, you can do that here as well. You can also adjust your brightness and volume on here, and then obviously change settings such as turning airplane mode on if you wish to do that. Now the controller does feature vibration, and it feels very much like a PlayStation controller. It has a good level of vibration, and you can adjust that on here as well. Also the sensitivity of the analog triggers and the joysticks you can adjust here as well. Like what we mentioned before, this is all the RGB adjustment. And then here you have a quick assistant, so you can open your Windows key. You have an on-screen keyboard, which if you want the on-screen keyboard, if I click that off, all you have to do is press this button here and it will upload the on-screen keyboard. Now obviously you can access the on-screen keyboard just by simply pushing the screen up and having that one there. A lot of people will actually prefer to use the on-screen keyboard, and I do find myself using that on-screen keyboard quite a lot. Now that could be down to a few limitations such as keyboard layout. Now some of the keys on the keyboard, if I just load that up, for example, if you want the @ key on here, you have to press what is this key here rather than the one that it actually says at the top here. Now that's quite an easy thing to work out and work around, but if you're not a big keyboard user, it could become quite confusing. Obviously the on-screen keyboard will do it based on the region that you have set in the settings at the start. Now I do like to use the keyboard as well, so I sort of take advantage of both worlds, but there's going to be a lot of people that would prefer to use a physical keyboard over an on-screen keyboard, and that's why this device will be better suited for them. Now again, the flip up screen feels really quite aggressive. It's a one push system, so obviously as you can see, you can just push it straight up and it snaps up. It is quite a satisfying snap. When you first do it, it feels a little bit alarming. It does feel like it's going to break it, but I can promise you it's not going to break it. In fact, if I slide it up now and then turn the device round, I can show you effectively how this screen works. It does have what I would call leaf spring technology in there. All it is 4 little metal rods that are positioned into a space to create tension to hold it up. If I start to slide it down, you can see how they work. They start to compress. Now what you'll find is that the sweet point with them is obviously fully open or fully closed. If I push it down, it snaps shut. If I pull it up, it snaps open. I will say that the mechanism is incredibly sturdy. It does not feel like it's going to fail anytime soon. So I don't feel like there's going to be any issues with the screen spring mechanism anytime soon. Obviously, if they do have issues, that's something that we're going to experience a little bit further down the line, and I'd like to imagine that a company like INEO and obviously Antec as well will honour any repairs done on a device like this, as long as you look after it yourself. One key thing you're going to have to take into consideration is that when you do have the screen up, yes, you can obviously tilt the screen forward. Now this can obviously make it nice and easy to use on the desktop, and you can still access or see the screen like this, or alternatively if you're using it for extended periods of time, it does allow your hands to become quite natural and sit nice and flat without having to move your hands, and obviously that can help with issues like carpal tunnel and more. But when you've got the screen tilted forward, the screen will not close while it's tilted forward, so you're going to have to make sure that you tilt it back down before you can close it. Unfortunately, you cannot tilt the screen forward when it's all closed, and that is something that I wish I could be able to do, because it would be nice to be able to see that, but I can understand then that the mechanisms would have to be really quite complicated. But it's very important to note that you cannot do that. Now when it comes to connectivity of a device, there is lots of options available. Now obviously in terms of the internal connectivity, such as Bluetooth, you have Bluetooth 5.3 technology and Wi-Fi 6E technology for ultra fast and reliable internet. Now the Wi-Fi 6E technology is fantastic because it has a further range than the standard Wi-Fi 5 or Wi-Fi 6 technology. Now you do have some external connectivity as well, so obviously you've got the keyboard and the triggers and the buttons and everything like that, all the external controls, but connectivity is found in the form of two USB-C ports, one of them at the top here and then one of them at the bottom. Now the advantage of these ports is not only for charging, because you can actually charge them on both ports. This is something that I really welcome, and a lot of handheld PCs are starting to do this. It is very nice and welcome to see, because you can obviously hold this, and if you've got it sort of rested on your knees, you can then plug the charger in at the top and have it charging or on power as you're using it without getting in the way here. And alternatively, the same thing for the other way around. It is USB Type-C generation 4, so it's high speed data transfer and bandwidth as well, meaning that you can connect external devices to it. You do obviously have the two USB on the go, so USB Type-C to USB-A connectors that you get included in the box, but you can also use this to connect it to an external display, as you would see with the dock. Now you obviously do have a micro SD slot underneath here as well, which as you can see here is concealed. Doesn't mean it's waterproof before anyone starts thinking that. This will support up to a 4TB micro SD card. Now obviously bear in mind that a 4TB SD card is going to be quite expensive, so you would probably get away with maybe a 1 or 2 for a decent price, just as an additional boost for storage. Now when it comes to the storage itself, it is 2TB and it is a 2280 drive, meaning that you can replace the drive for a larger one. The controls in general feel really nice and well situated. Everything feels nice and comfortable. Everything pretty much is at a thumb's pace, so you've got the buttons here and then the D-pad down here. You do have these joysticks here. Obviously, as mentioned earlier, they are Hall effect joysticks, which means that there is going to be no issues with stick shift on a device like this. And then obviously you have the trigger buttons at the back, which work very similar to a standard controller, Xbox or PlayStation. And then you do have some additional ones here. So on the back there isn't much more to it apart from the intake for the fan and a bit of detail and branding. You do also have a volume rocker on the top as well. And this button here is actually the power button, but it's also a fingerprint reader as well. There is an indicator light to show that obviously it's loading and everything's working or charging. And then there is a microphone port here. On the bottom there are two speakers, one that you can see here and one that you can see here. So they are downward facing and they do sort of direct the audio to you, makes it more of a personal experience. The last thing you want to be doing is playing a game on a train somewhere, and if you don't have headphones in, is blasting the sound out to everybody else. Obviously if you're doing media viewing such as Netflix or YouTube, that again is going to be ideal. Now the only real issue about the black one, which is something I wish they could change, but it is what it is, and most people with devices like this would probably get an outer shell for it, but the black one shows up every little mark, every fingerprint. So even if you've washed your hands and you've got a little bit of grease on your hands, it's going to mark this outer shell, and it is such a shame. That's not a unique problem with the Antec Core HS. I have found that as well with the Steam Deck and also the Legion Go. They both do the exact same sort of thing. Must be something to do with the kind of plastic that they use. It is a bit of a shame, but again, you're not really going to notice this. On the front, you do have the same thing. As you can see, there's actually a little bit of a stain here which has sort of stuck on, a bit of dried on grease or anything like that from your hands or anything like that. So it is a little bit of a shame. You are going to be finding that you're going to be wiping this down quite a lot. The screen itself is also a bit of a fingerprint magnet, which is a shame as well, but not the end of the world. The screen on this is absolutely fantastic. It's a 6-inch IPS display that features a 1080p resolution with a 368 ppi pixel density, meaning that everything looks super bright, clear and accurate. It does have a 400 nits brightness, so it's quite bright as well. Even outside you can see the screen just fine. And then it does have an impressive 1000:1 contrast ratio. Whilst it's not going to give you the blackest of the blacks, it is an IPS panel. It's going to be quite limited. It's still very nice. I've experienced no issues with this display whatsoever. So the important question is, how does the Antec Core HS stack against some of its competitors? Now I'm actually going to be doing a video, well, a few videos with direct comparisons between all of these devices here, and hopefully I'm going to try and get my hands on some others as well. This one here, for example, is the ROG Ally, not the ROG Ally X, but in terms of performance, they're both almost identical. This obviously is the Steam Deck, not the OLED version. This is the LCD, and this is a Lenovo Legion Go. This is obviously the Antec Core HS in both variants, well, black and white. This is the 32GB RAM model with 2TB hard drive included. So if you want to look at more videos like this where I do some direct comparisons, don't forget to click subscribe to the channel, because there's going to be much more coming, and we're going to really put these to an extensive amount of testing to see which one exactly you should be looking for. Now when it comes to directly pitting these against each other, there's a lot of factors that obviously sway different people to different devices. I've had a good play on all of these. I've spent the last probably couple of weeks really sort of dialing in on them and seeing what the gameplay is like on them, and generally speaking I've found that the gameplay aspect is very similar on all of them. The advantage of obviously the device like the Legion Go is that large screen. Out of all of them, I would probably say this is the best screen. I mean, it is the most high resolution screen here. It's an 8.8 inch 2560 by 1200 144Hz display. It is an absolutely striking screen, but the only problem is with this is, as you can see, it is a large device, and it does, even though it's quite comfortable to hold, the size does make an issue, especially if you just want to lay in bed and play some games. I often find that due to the fact that it does have the smaller size, I keep going towards the Core HS. Now the Core HS, for the argument's sake, is probably the heaviest. Without the controllers on the Legion Go, the controllers make this device the heaviest. With the controllers on, it comes to 854 grams. Without them, it's 640 grams. The Antec Core HS in general, obviously you can't take away the controllers, everything is built in. This one does come in at 650 grams as it is. The ROG Ally comes in at 608 grams and the Steam Deck comes in at 640 grams. But with that said, because this is so compact, everything just fits in your hand really nicely. It's a little bit smaller than an average Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch is probably more along the lines of the ROG Ally in terms of size. Now, the screen quality is very good on all of them. Now, the Steam Deck does start to suffer here. The Steam Deck only has a 7.4 inch screen, so it's still the second biggest screen here, but it's a very, very low resolution. It's only 1280 by 800 and it's a 90Hz refresh rate. So while it's okay and it works fine, the most high definition screen, the most high resolution screen is definitely the Legion Go. The ROG Ally tends to fall behind a little bit. It is a 7-inch 1080p display and it's also a 120Hz display. but I do find that the detail is slightly lacking on this one. It doesn't quite look quite as sharp as some of the other ones. Now the Antec Core HS, when I first got my hands on one of these with Lee from Antec, when I went to the TechMax show, the first thing I said to him was how impressive the screen looks. And I actually thought that this was probably more like a 1440 or potentially even a 4K screen, because it looks super sharp. And I mean, it's going to be difficult to see on the camera, but the screen quality on the Antec Core HS is absolutely fantastic. Now obviously a lot of that will be down to the smaller screen size. It is a 6-inch screen, so it's the smallest screen out of a lot, but that means that the pixel density is very, very good, and everything looks fantastic on here. Now again, you're not going to get quite as crispy images as you would on the Legion Go, because naturally that is a higher resolution display. But what I did find is that this is almost comparable if you take away the fact of the physical size. Also, the maneuverability of this screen is a real advantage. The fact that with all these, you pick them up, you're playing your game, and obviously everything is pretty much what you see. You do find that you end up sort of tilting the device depending on where you're sat, how you're sat, so that it's comfortable. And over extended periods of time, they do start to cause issues with my neck, hurting basically. With this one, even though it is a heavy device, as I've mentioned multiple times in this video, it is the most ergonomic and comfortable to use. The fact that you can display your screen forward like this means that you can effectively just rest your hands on things and still see the screen really well without having to tilt the device forward like you would on any of the others. So it's a really welcome addition with that screen that you can effectively tilt forward. Now in terms of battery life, they all perform quite well. The only one that really sort of suffers is the ROG Ally. I don't know why. It's a fantastic device. I do find myself gravitating to this one quite a bit because I like the way it looks and the way it feels, and it looks the most modern and futuristic out of all of them. But the battery life on this is not very good. It does have a 40 watt hour battery, but the actual capacity is only 2,590 milliamp hours. An average mobile phone nowadays will have between a 3,500 to 5,000 milliamp hour battery, so you can get a good idea of just how low that battery life actually is. A full session of gameplay on high resolution graphics, you're probably going to get a couple of hours out of that if you're lucky. Now the next one for battery size is the Steam Deck. This one has a 50 watt hour battery. It is 5,200 milliamp hours. It's double what the ROG Ally is, but you'll find that the battery life on this is phenomenally good because it doesn't have such a high resolution screen to run. Going up next in terms of size is the Antec Core HS. This has a 46.2 watt hour battery, but it's a 12,000 milliamp hour battery, so a massive, in fact a significant jump over these two. In fact, it's actually 2.5 times the amount of the Steam Deck and about 4.5 times bigger than the ROG Ally. Now where it does fall short is the Legion Go. Now this one does feature a 49.2 watt hour battery, but it has a whopping 13,240 milliamp hour battery. Now that's all great because obviously the large size of it allows you to have more battery capacity. But with that said, the best one for battery life out of all these is still, hands down, the Antec Core HS. That's due to the fact that it doesn't have such a large screen to power. So this one has the biggest battery, but it also has the biggest screen to run, the highest resolution to run. This one has the second biggest battery, but it has the smallest screen to run. They all utilise AMD processors with these. Now there are some handheld PCs on the market currently run by Intel processors, such as the MSI Claw. Don't have one of these to test currently, but these all run off AMD architecture. Now this one, the Steam Deck, is the lowest power of them all. This one runs on an AMD APU CPU, a Zen 2 chipset. It's a 4-core, 8-thread processor, and it will run the games just fine, but this is obviously running a form of Linux, which is not really Windows. You don't get the full-fledged Windows. You can bootload Windows onto this, but the out-of-box experience is much lower than what you see on all of these. Now, these two here run on the AMD Z1 Extreme. Now, they are both very capable processors, and the Antec Core HS runs on the 7840U. In terms of overall performance, the Z1 and the 7840U both effectively run almost identical. What you'll find is that the Z1 will run slightly more efficient. It is really designed at a handheld PC performance because you can lower the power draw and power delivery to just 9 watts on these, making it a very efficient chipset. But there's also limitations in terms of how far it can be pushed. The 7840U, however, doesn't really have any limitations. Yes, it's going to be running a little bit more power hungry, but you can really push this one. You can really overclock the chipset to really push slightly higher than these. So with gameplay, if you really are careful with this, and obviously make sure that you have plenty of cooling options available, don't have it where you're suffocating the air intake at the bottom and obviously the air output at the top, you should be able to push some significant amount of performance from these. And then obviously it comes down to pricing. Now the cheapest one here naturally is a Steam Deck, the LCD version at least. This is the oldest one of a lot. You can pick these up currently for around £300 to £400, and if you're really lucky you can probably pick one up for about £250. And you get 16 gigabytes of RAM for that, and either a 512GB storage or a 1TB storage. Now the Legion Go is probably the most expensive one here. These currently fetch between £600 to £800, and they do come in a 16GB variant with 512GB memory storage. The ROG Ally, you can pick them up for between £550 to £700, and they once again come in a 16GB memory set and 512GB of storage. And the Antec Core HS currently is only available in the UK in one variant, either colour, so you can have black or white, but they only have the 32GB DDR5 RAM kit and 2TB hard drive, and you can pick them up for £549, including all the accessories that we mentioned earlier on in the video. So in terms of value, the Antec Core HS, in my opinion, wins it hands down. You've got the same performance, if not slightly higher, than the ROG Ally for definite. Yes, the Legion Go slightly pips it on battery size and screen size, but as an all-rounder, the Antec Core HS is the best value. The fact that you can get double the amount of RAM on all of these with 32GB of RAM is phenomenal for a price point. You'd struggle to get a modern PC with that sort of RAM for anywhere near that sort of price point. And then obviously you've got that 2TB hard drive in there as well, with the option to upgrade it to 4TB if you do so wish. And obviously it's a 2280 drive as well, meaning you can get the full size NVMe drives, Gen 4, not Gen 5, doesn't run Gen 5 yet, obviously the Gen 4 drives, and that's also going to allow you to get much cheaper upgrades in terms of storage. These ones all run at 2230 or 2240 I believe for the ROG Ally, and you'll often find that the smaller drives, smaller physical drives, are a bit more expensive than a standard 2280. So to put it into perspective, I'm not going to do full-on tests in this video. Again, I'm going to do that in a future video, but in terms of value and what you get right out of the box, I am definitely swinging more towards the Core HS. I do find myself going to the Legion Go quite a lot, especially the fact that you can detach the controllers. That is a very handy feature, and you've obviously got the stand at the back, and that large screen size is very easy on the eyes. The ROG Ally just seems to struggle to cut it. It's a very good, capable device, but that low battery life really does make it suffer. In fact, it's actually running out of battery as we speak. The Steam Deck just feels quite old and sluggish now. Yes, it still runs the games okay, and it is the original, well, I'll say original, but original handheld PC, but it just feels a bit old now, and it just feels a little bit outdated. So the Antec Core HS in this round, I would probably say wins hands down. Now again, it's down to a preference of which colour you'd prefer to go to. The fact that you can choose the colours is also a bonus, and I think the reason that I am going to swing for the Antec Core HS is obviously that extended storage allowance, the 2TB straight out of the box. You don't need to extend it. Obviously you can add an SD card to it as well if you do wish to, and that can support up to 4TB as well as for 4TB on the SSD. The ROG Ally does historically have an issue with overheating SD cards. It has been known to fry SD cards, so I've always avoided putting an SD card in there. But the Lenovo Legion Go has been pretty good at reading SD cards. There's been no complaints with that. But the fact that you get 2TB in the box, straight out of a box, is absolutely fantastic. So you should be able to download a good Steam library or Epic Games library onto this device without having to worry about adding extra storage. Now, a 32GB RAM naturally trumps all of these, and that's just to be expected. Obviously, you double in the RAM, means that you can run the system for a lot longer, everything is really consistent, and you can open a lot more apps and you don't see any slowing down or any lacks in performance. That chipset is absolutely fantastic. It really does benefit with obviously being able to customize it by pressing this button here. Now, obviously, the fact that you can change your thermal draw power just by clicking a button, you can change all your FPS limits, you can do all sorts of configurations just by one click on this device, really does give it that little bit of an edge. Now, obviously, the battery isn't quite as big as the Legion Go, as I mentioned, but you do find you get a better battery life altogether than the Legion Go, due to the fact it is a smaller screen. Yes, it is a smaller screen, but I would say visually it's the best looking screen of a lot, and obviously it's a perfect size. It's not too big. Yes, it's a bit heavy. I would like to see it a little bit lighter, but that's probably going to become a bit of a sacrifice of performance, so it's more than bearable. And obviously, with it being heavy, you do find that you end up holding it a bit flatter, but that screen then helps with that because you can tilt it forward so that you don't have to really tilt the hands back or forward to sort of compensate for the weight. It's just a very, very well designed unit. Now, I know obviously it's made by Ayaneo. Ayaneo make a lot of handheld PCs. It's not their first rodeo. They have a huge amount of devices on the market, and they just seem to keep bringing new ones out consistently. But that is a good thing, because every time they do a new rendition, a new version, everything gets tightened up and honed in and improved. And obviously with this one, with a collaboration with Antec, Antec's first dive into the handheld PC systems, this is a bit of a no-brainer. They have really hit the nail on the head and felt very, very lucky with falling with Ayaneo. Now, obviously, this is effectively the Ayaneo slide. You can actually just pick these up as the Ayaneo slide, but you don't get all those extra additional accessories with it. So the Antec one, especially picking it up for about $5.50, is a no-brainer. It definitely, in my opinion, out of all these, makes it the one to choose. Now, again, it's down to you which colour you choose. I prefer the white one. I think the white one looks fantastic. I've always had a bias towards white products, but the black one will probably be more to people's taste. It's not quite so in your face. You're walking down the street with something like this, people are going to see you and they're really going to sort of stand out. Walking around with something like this is going to look a bit more concealed, a bit more secretive, and it's probably going to draw less attention to you. And that pretty much wraps up my review of the Antec Core HS handheld gaming PC by Antec, obviously the Ayaneo slide. It is an incredibly capable device. I've been left incredibly impressed with this. Gameplay, as you can see, is absolutely phenomenal. It just plays every game that I throw at it, and that screen looks absolutely faultless. Now again, the Lenovo Legion Go, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, does technically have a higher resolution screen, and the screen is significantly larger than this, but that does also have a knock-on effect in terms of battery life, and obviously the larger size makes it a little bit more cumbersome to handle, especially over longer periods. Now, there are a few pros and cons to this device. Some of the pros obviously are the performance. The performance is amazing. It's been absolutely faultless. It's not once sort of crashed or had any errors or said that it can't handle it, and pretty much any game that I have played has played in full high texture resolution at 60 frames minimum, depending on the game obviously. Some games it was actually playing up to 120. The screen is phenomenal, 6-inch 1080p display. I actually genuinely thought that this was a higher resolution display than it actually is. The fact that you have the pop-up screen is really a benefit and a plus. And then obviously the tilt feature is also a massive help when it comes to ergonomics for the device. Now, a handheld PC is a device that's going to be aimed to be used quite a lot for a personal user. Having that extra level of ergonomics with the tilt forward screen, enabling you to sort of really rest your hands, is definitely an advantage. Now, the full keyboard is very good. It is a little bit small, but that might just be the fact that I've got big sausage fingers and I do struggle sometimes with it, but generally speaking it is absolutely fine. And it does have the on-screen keyboard as well. When you're holding it, the console feels very comfortable in hand. It does feel like it's sort of moulded around your hands, which is obviously something that's come from Ayaneo's multiple device list over the years. They've really sort of managed to hone the device ergonomics in very well, and it just feels nice. It is a heavy device, and unfortunately it can be quite heavy if you're a smaller person, a slightly daintier person, or you are a child that's using this. You're probably going to start to notice a little bit of fatigue in your hands or wrists over a bit of time. But with that said, it's only about 100 grams either side in difference from some of the other devices. The fact that you get 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM included is incredible. There's nothing on the market that can come close to that currently. And then obviously the 2TB inbuilt memory on that 2280 SSD is super fast, clean, it just works really, really well. And obviously 2TB is a huge amount of storage for all the games. And then obviously the included dock that you get with it enables you to effectively turn it into a fully fledged PC. The fact that you can obviously extend the storage either via micro SD or alternatively changing out the 2280 NVMe inside up to a 4TB effectively gives you the option of expanding all your storage up to 8TB, which is just mind-blowing for something like this. And obviously you can alternatively add external storage devices as well via the USB-C. Now there's a couple of downsides to it, and there's not actually many, and they're quite trivial, but they're just something that I don't particularly like about it, and the main one is the coating on the actual unit itself. Again, it's not a problem individual to Antec Core HS devices. The Steam Deck does do the same thing, and the Lenovo Legion Go to an extent, and some other devices as well. It is a fingerprint dust and grease magnet. I'm finding myself using it, and then after every time I'm scrubbing it down with a cloth. Obviously don't use any chemicals on these. It will sort of affect the actual structure of the plastic housing, and obviously you don't want to risk getting anything into the intakes and ventilation points. The weight can be a little bit of an issue. It is really quite substantial, it's quite heavy. You're talking about 2/3 of a bag of sugar in your hands at all time. You do often find that you end up resting your hands on the desk, or obviously on your stomach if you're fat like me, or anything like that. And it's just more, I think it feels more exaggerated because it's such a compact device. Obviously comparing it to all the other devices that we saw in this video, it is the most compact device, and obviously that then forces you to feel that weight, whereas on the larger devices it is distributed a little bit more. Again, that's something quite trivial, because I know that if they were to shave weight, they'd probably have to shave some performance somewhere, because they need to get everything into the device. Other than that, I don't think I've got any complaints with the handheld itself. It's absolutely fantastic, and again, I've not had a play on the ROG Ally X. I know for a fact that they've improved some key areas, and obviously they've increased the RAM on that as well by another 8GB, so even then it's only 24GB compared to the 32GB. The specifications of the actual device in general is pretty much the same. It's still using the Ryzen Z1 Extreme chipset, which is effectively the same chipset as the 7840U that you get here, although you can't sort of push it quite as far as you can these ones. From my experience of playing with all of them, there's pros and cons to all of them, but I keep finding myself turning to this one, and this is the one that I keep coming back to. I wasn't a massive fan of handheld PCs before, mostly because the old handheld PCs that I had way back when were absolutely atrocious, slow, buggy, the screens were awful. The closest things to it other than that were obviously the Nintendo Switches, the Game Boys, the Sega Game Gear effectively, and they really sort of honed in on making handheld PCs an actual thing. It's gaining massive amounts of popularity now. It's going to be something we're going to see a lot of, so expect to see more like this coming very soon. I don't know if any other companies are planning on working on any more. Again, Antec, I'm hoping this isn't just the only one that they do. I'm hoping that maybe next year they do a new revision and they release a new one as well with some further improvements. But as a first time system from a company that has never really delved into this sort of thing, working with Ioneo was a golden ticket to Antec. They have really got it right with this one. They've put their branding on a device that's already incredibly solid, based on a company that is already pretty solid, and it is a absolute victory in my eyes, and this is an outstanding product. Very, very impressed with this. In fact, obviously I've got the black and white one, so it's just a case of choosing which colour you want. Go ahead and pick them up from eBuyer $550 at the minute with all the accessories included. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know how long the offer with all the accessories included is going to last, or if it's something we're planning to keep going for the duration of the sales of the device. I will leave a link in the description down below as to where you can get your hands on one. As always, I'd love to hear what you think down below, or what is your favourite handheld down below. Obviously, I know there's a really good following for each of the handheld devices. I'm not knocking on any of the handheld devices. I've got the ones I've got and I enjoy playing on every single one of them. And I like a lot of things on those, and I also like a lot of things on this. So I'd be interested to hear down below in the comments what you think about this device, and obviously any devices that you do have, or what would you like to see changed on a device like this, because I know for a fact that some of the manufacturers of devices like this will be watching videos like this to see if they can pick up any tricks. And obviously, whilst you're down there, don't forget to click like and subscribe. We have lots more coming, including lots more content on these, where we do a direct, intense comparison with the likes of the other devices that you saw on the video earlier. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss them. And that's pretty much it. I've been Gadget Joe. This has been the Antec Core HS in both white and black. And until next time, goodbye.